There was a time when my wife and I felt like we were just living parallel lives. We juggled work, the kids, our fitness goals, then we went to bed and started over the next day. This was the cause of a lot of resentment, which led to massive fights of the seemingly tiny little things that went on throughout the day. Welcome back to the show, guys. Today's episode is for anyone who's ever struggled with feeling torn between spending time with a partner and prioritizing their health. I know that's a big struggle with a lot of our clients. We've dealt with it personally. So if you have ever thought I'll just skip my workout to hang out with them, or they don't care about fitness like I do, this one is absolutely for you. And as far as why this matters, relationship and health are both long games, but most people treat them like opposing teams. So today we're going to reframe fitness from a selfish act to a shared path to connection. Now, full transparency, I did not prep either of these two with today's episode. I wanted it to be organic and just be a regular conversation. So I guess to dive in and kind of give our first talking point, talk a bit about what this scenario looked like for us personally. And Joel, I'm sure you can relate in some capacity, unless you guys are living in this perfect la land over there. I don't know. I got no idea. So for us, it's obviously the transition with the first kid. People ask about the transitions for every child. It was tough with Kai, different with Cora, different with Wes. Regardless of how difficult I would say that was, as far as parenthood specific, because I think we just talked a couple episodes ago about how Wes has been a fairly easy transition. Cora was pretty easy with Kai. But from a relationship perspective, we have continued to put ourselves on the back burner in so many different things. And obviously being parent facing first, I think has made it so much more difficult, because obviously the kids are at the top of the pedestal for everything. And it wasn't even that we were necessarily unhappy, but we just had less grace for ourselves. I think any little thing could set us off because there was no balance there. If you're not filling that cup, it doesn't take much to knock the whole thing over, in a sense.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely has ebbed and flowed with all three kids, but for the most part, it was the hardest with Kai, with going from having no kids to one kid. And it was something that really felt, I think I even remember feeling this way a little bit towards the end of pregnancy too. Like there was a lot that you just didn't understand about like how I was feeling, and like I'm someone who doesn't enjoy being pregnant, and like obviously when you don't enjoy something and you don't feel your best, like that's going to impact the rest of your day-to-day life for sure too. So I feel like I didn't do a great job at communicating like how I felt at that point. But then once Kai did get here and did arrive, it was like we were thrown to the wolves almost, because it was like fight or flight. Like we were either going to figure it out or we weren't. And we figured it out. Obviously we're sitting here today with three kids. But I feel like you just get to this point where you either have to figure out how to communicate better and express like what you need as a person, as well as what you need from and within the relationship too. And if you don't figure that out, it kind of just compounds and that resentment builds, and it's like it feels like you're just against each other, like going head to head and starting from one thing, but that bleeds to all other areas too. And I feel like we talked about this a little bit in the last episode. Like we're in a unique situation where we're both working from home. And, you know, at that point when we had Kai, we were full time with the business, and it was obviously a different time of business because it was us with a lot of clients and we just had a bigger workload in that sense. But it was still like this huge transition of, okay, I need to figure out how to communicate with my spouse. We need to figure out when we're going to work out, and like how do we do that with a baby and still run this business and support ourselves, because we had to, like that was how we were bringing money in. So there was a lot of moving pieces, and I feel like for us it was just, I don't know, it took us a bit to find our groove, and I don't feel like we truly came to head with this and like had this conversation until years later. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like maybe we had it a few times, but we didn't really get to the point where we were like, okay, we kind of see each other fully. Like it took years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we got better at the communication aspect as the years have gone on, as I've like personally taken a step back from being hyper
Matured.
reactive. Yeah, mature. That's a good word. Uh, became the ice master, became the meditation guy, and that allowed me to kind of separate specific thing happening from my reaction to it. And again, we've talked about enhancing that space, like letting that space grow from action or not from event to reaction to it. So I grew up a very difficult time covering my emotions, having a handle on my emotions. And I think I told you guys in one of these episodes, I have a note saved in my phone: anger is an addiction. And like, the better I feel, this never stops. Like, it's a consistent battle. I'm always going to be focusing on preventative measures to make sure I have a good handle on those emotions. And, you know, especially as a husband, as a father, as a son, as a friend, like, you can ruin a lot of relationships with that hyperreactivity. So I think as we got better communicating, we were able to move through these certain things. Because, and I know a lot of people are in a similar situation, whether you were an extreme as I was or just somewhere in the middle. Like, you just get lost in the day. You get lost in life. You get lost in the parenthood. Every day is just a blur. Everything's so busy. It's about taking that time to separate and sit down, have the conversations, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like, it's not just when things suck, like when things are going well. And for us, it's always been a strange juggle, so a strange formula, because we're even working on the same thing. So it's like, we're not coming home and having conversations about the day. Like, we were there the entire time. We know all the things that are going on. So we would just go through and just decompress with a show or two at the end of the day, say 3 words to each other, go to sleep, repeat. And then when someone does one little thing that's annoying, it becomes this huge thing that you just get set off because, again, you're pouring from nothing. And it's like, well, what the fuck? You should get
I
this. You should
think
understand. Well, you don't.
I think it ends up becoming a vicious cycle too, because one thing, kind of like Alessandra said, ends up bleeding into the other, which ends up bleeding into the other. Like, okay, you're not communicating super well, and now that's fostering resentment, and now you'd rather just do it yourself than have to communicate it and it not be done your way, and now you're doing everything, and now you're being overstimulated, and now you're hyper vigilant when the smallest thing does happen. Like, there's this almost like a loop that you get stuck in, and I, even for myself, that I will get stuck in, of like, I'm overstimulated and now I'm shorter with the kids and now I'm shorter with my spouse because I didn't just communicate the thing that needed to be communicated in the first place. Or, you know, you're not communicating it until it comes to a head, and then it's, you know, an argument when it didn't need to be. And I think we talked about this in our, maybe like that postpartum episode that we did, Alessandra, where Josh had the plague or something. Where we talked about, like, the number one thing that I learned about that first postpartum is anything I don't communicate fosters into resentment. Like, anything that was not communicated became something that I ended up being resentful for. And it's interesting to hear you guys talk about this too, post Kai, because I know Kai was born like a few months before the world shut down, and that was like a whole other level of isolation, and you guys were together in that. And it's so interesting to hear to hear you guys talk about kind of going through some of the same stuff that Brant and I experienced when we had our first baby, because so much of what I perceived as resentment, resentment is so harsh. It's a harsh word. And I know that there was some resentment in there, but I remember just things feeling kind of unfair is almost a better word for it in the beginning. And it's interesting to hear you guys talk about that too, because you were obviously home with each other, running the business together and parenting with each other. And on my end, I remember feeling like, you know, I was so grateful that Brant had a month of paternity leave, but he went back to work. And then I was like, wow, your life is normal now. Like, you go back to work and you leave the house and you're gone for the day and you come home and like, you have a few minutes with the kids and like it's dinner and like your day is normal. And my day is completely different. Like I'm nursing 800 times a day. I'm trying to manage work and the baby and feed her and feed me. And like now I'm doing 5 a.m. workouts because I have to do it before the baby wakes up. And like I remember at the time feeling like my life has changed so much and it doesn't feel like your life has changed. And now we're in a way different position because like we have 2 kids and like I'm also not in that same state of mind, and we've communicated really well, and we definitely have different like default jobs when it comes to the house, the kids, things like that. And that has all come from really great communication and learning to really be a team and not feel like you're on, you know, someone's on offense and someone's on defense. Like y'all have to be on the same team. And nothing taught us better communication like having that first baby.
Yeah, I agree. And I I say that often, and I always follow up with that's not a reason to have a kid if you are, you know, kidless right now
No.
in a situation where it's already, you know, that communication is not there. It's not like the kid is going to fix it. But
No.
I do
If
think
anything,
that
it will probably make it harder. Yeah.
yes. But I think, you know, when we talk about this from our perspective, like having our firstborn children really did force us to be like, okay, we have to figure this out, or like it's going to be just miserable for everybody here. But I was going to say something else regarding what you said, Joelle. Now it's completely
jump in
gone.
with something
About like
quick.
your life changing, but like,
Oh,
did you feel like
yes,
Josh's
yes.
life changed just as much as yours?
I wanted to bring this up. So, I feel like, yeah, we were in a obviously different scenario with us both being home, and like that was kind of already our norm. But at the same time, like when you're the one breastfeeding, like obviously there's so much more that as the mother who's feeding and in charge of all of those things that you're carrying like for the baby. So I felt like in that sense, like it was almost really hard for me to let go of doing other things, like letting Josh take him and change his diaper the right way, or like I felt like at first I was just like, let me just do it because I can do it faster and easier, and it's just easier for everybody. But if I didn't finally let that go and give him a chance to figure it out, I would still be doing all the things all the time.
Yeah.
So I just want to bring that point up too, because I think I posted about this a while ago and it kind of caught traction and got some heat too. But I remember like one of my first postpartum workouts, we were living in a duplex house at the time. Our gym was in the basement. So I remember I went downstairs and left Kai with Josh, and I probably just fed him or whatever. Kai was a little bit more of a fussy baby, and I don't know if that's just because like we were first time parents, like maybe he was just needed to be fed more, or maybe like he was gassy, or like I don't know. Looking back, maybe he could have been less fussy based on what we were responding with, sure, or maybe he was just a fussier baby. Anyway, but I remember going downstairs and giving him to Josh and like letting him fully take over. And I could hear him crying through the ceiling. Like I was in the basement, and I so badly wanted to run upstairs and just make him stop crying. Like I think that's a natural instinct, but I chose not to that time. And I remember thinking to myself, if I don't let him figure it out, what are we going to do if like I'm not here one day, or like I leave to go to the store, or like whatever the scenario is. Like he needs to be the parent and figure it out for himself too. And I think that one decision, and you know, it was followed by many decisions that with that same mindset, really allowed us to be equal parents and equal partners, and fully, it helped me let go a little bit more, but also kind of gave him the confidence too to be like, okay, I can do this. I can take care of my son. Whereas if I was constantly going back up and just handling it for him, when is he ever going to learn to do that for himself, you know?
It's funny. I think with Kai, we were after, like, aside from the breastfeeding part, we were very evenly split. Like we were 50-50 parents, 50-50 in the business. So our lives both completely changed. And the bit of, and I know we're doing this for a reason, and like this is today's strategy, but the bit of guilt that I have right now is that with Wes, my Kai, Cora, that era life hasn't changed. Like you have taken Wes on full force. I have, like, I'm around, I'm with him, I do certain things, but it's the same as before he was here. And that, again, that was a strategy decision. I'm still like fully there. I'm taking over more with Kai and Cora and the dogs and business. But as far as bringing him home, like nothing else really changed for me. I feed him a bottle a few days a week, and like I'll be with him for chunks at a time. But like this transition has been the smallest transition for me in the last 6 years.
And it may feel like the smallest transition of your three kids, Alessandra. It might feel like the smallest transition for you too, honestly. But it's likely still of a more of a transition for you, not just in breastfeeding, but nighttime wake ups and breastfeeding throughout the day and like postpartum rehab and core work and the way you're doing your workouts. Like it's more than just the breastfeeding, and it's hard because when they are this little, like it is really mom heavy stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how it changes per kid. It's interesting how it changes with time as we learn to communicate better or as we add more children to our families.
But I will say, yes, it's been a different transition this time. And yes, we're seasoned parents this time. So in many ways, we've said this before, it's a lot easier, quote unquote. But I will say, like, I think prioritizing my exercise and health and all of the things that we talk about on a weekly basis on this podcast, our L5 method, if I think about if I was not doing those things, like what would life look like for me right now? How would I be feeling right now? And I can tell you right off the bat, I would not be this pleasant. I would probably not feel very confident about myself. I would not feel confident, in our relationship. I would just feel very heavy in many other avenues, which is why I'm such a that's why I talk about the things I talk about online so heavy, because without this stuff, without daily movement, without getting outside, without fueling my body with foods that make me feel good so that I can have good digestion and good energy and have the energy to then, connect with Josh in more ways than just walking by each other throughout the day, like I don't know how it would be right now. So I just want to really drive that point home. Even if it doesn't look like our life or it doesn't look like what we're doing in the postpartum period, especially in those early days, especially where you are so baby heavy when it comes to taking care of your newborn, like you have to prioritize those things to some extent if you want to come out of that early stage feeling good in any way. I truly believe that wholeheartedly. Like a lot of new information, new research has started to come out. I don't know if you saw the updated postpartum study, Joelle, that came out a few weeks back. They updated the Canadian guidelines for postpartum women, and it is incredible. I think we should do a whole episode on this. Actually, Coach Kara reached out to me a couple days ago and wants to come on and talk about just postpartum fitness, and I think it'd be really cool to have the three of us chat. But Canada has new guidelines now that really just push exercise more for moms and kind of opened a whole door for postpartum women, especially in the early postpartum stage, to exercise, to get back to that moderate intensity cardio multiple times per week, just because they have found how much it improves things like postpartum depression and anxiety and just overall well-being and their return to fitness in general. So I'll send it to you later, but it was super interesting to see their guidelines shift in such a positive direction. It felt like such a big win. I know we're not quite there yet on the American side. I know it takes a long time for this research to come to the forefront here with these establishments. But it felt like a huge step in the right direction for postpartum women, which was really exciting.
Hey guys, real quick. If you've been listening and thinking, I need to start doing something for my health, but I don't have time for a full program, that's literally why we built the SDE Method app. It's a fitness app made for real people with real lives. Busy parents, working professionals, anyone juggling 100 things. You can get a smart, effective workout done in around 30 minutes, some even closer to 20 minutes, and log out knowing you made progress. You can finally take the guessing out of your workouts. We have workouts designed to be done at the gym or at home, and you get access to all of them when you sign up. As life phases change, you can pick a new one that aligns better with what you have going on right now. And one more thing, we are also qualified for HSA FSA reimbursement. So just hit the app link in the show notes, start where you are, we'll help with the rest. All right, let's get back to the show.
I do want to come back to something that you said before. We may have touched on this in our other postpartum episode, But I want to come back to what you said about letting Josh do, because that was something also that I had to learn, because I was like, I can do it all. I want to be super mom. I want to do everything. I want to be able to take care of myself and the baby and Brant not have to wake up. And it eventually got to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything. And when Brant and I finally sat down and had a conversation about it, probably in the first few weeks postpartum with baby one, he was like, well, every time I ask to do something, you say, no, I got it. And then you end up angry that you're doing all the things, but every time someone offers you help, you're like, no, no, I'll do it. No, 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 I'll do it. And part of that was just like the controlling part of me being like, I just know I'll do it better. I would just rather me do the diaper. Like I would just rather me nurse her.
It
And then I'd be
feels
like,
easier in the moment.
yes, it feels easier in the moment to just do it yourself, especially when you're like, I like my way. And then you're like, okay, I don't want to let you do anything. And then when you're like, you don't do anything, you're like, but I try and I offer, and then you say no. And then I remember being like, well, just keep asking and I'll try to say yes more. And that's like part of the communication thing. And I think, you mentioned the idea of like giving Josh the baby and you hearing him cry, and that urge so badly of like, God, I just want to go in there and pick him up, and I know he'll stop crying as soon as I go in there. But also, I have to prioritize me too, because if I don't come down here and I get this workout in, I will be miserable later. I will be short with the baby. I will be short with my spouse. And it's so easy in that moment for your mom instincts to kick in and be like, let me just go fix it. Let me just go handle the baby. And I think as moms, we become so accustomed to sometimes putting ourselves on the back burner at the expense of making sure that our children are taken care of. Like it's a maternal instinct. And sometimes you almost have to fight that instinct to remember that if you don't pour into you and you don't take that 30 minutes to go get a workout in, or 10 minutes outside to take some deep breaths, or whatever that thing is for you, everyone's going to suffer.
Mm-hmm. And it's so hard. It's not an
challenging
easy thing.
Yeah. Like you do like, I feel like you kind of have to learn it the hard way. Like if you're just hearing us talk about it, you might not get it until you're in it. And then you're like, once you do have that revelation almost, you're like, oh my God. Yeah, I should have just taken that 30-minute workout would have then propelled me to be happier, lighter, etc. throughout the day. And instead of taking that 30 minutes for myself, now I'm pissed off that I missed my workout, pissed off that I went in there, pissed off that my husband couldn't just calm the baby down. And that, look at all the other things that bleeds into. Mm-hmm. Now you're feeling more resentful. Now you don't want to communicate. Now you're pissed off. Now you're feeling maybe even resentful toward the baby, or annoyed toward the baby, even though it's not the baby's fault. Like it bleeds into everything else when, as a mom or a parent, you don't take care of yourself first. And when you do take care of yourself first, like Alessandra said, we talk about this all the time because we've lived it and we have seen firsthand that when we don't take care of ourselves first, marriage gets harder, kids get harder, parenthood gets harder, work gets harder. But if we could pour into ourselves, we can prevent that, or at least mitigate the hard.
Well, I want to run in with that a little bit. Let's dive in a little bit deeper there. So obviously pretty self-explanatory. We've been hitting it from the parenthood side of things. But even if it's just a couple who both work, whether it's 9 to 5, whether they're extended shift, they're flat out, they both want to take care of themselves, or in an even more trying scenario, one of them wants to take care of themselves. So they get back after this long day, whatever your situation is. One person wants to have dinner, watch a movie, go to a movie, go out, whatever the deal is. One person wants to go to the gym or go for a run or just go for a walk outside together, and they're just not on the same page. How do you initiate that conversation when someone knows that's what's filling their cup and the other person feels like that person is being selfish? Because this is something a lot of our clients have struggled with, or even people who have not moved forward with coaching because this scenario came to the forefront before they even got to that point. So what do you say to that person? How do they work through that together? What conversation are you having?
So I'll give an example of something similar that happened. And there's a kid involved in this, like one of our children involved in this situation, but it's relevant to what you're talking about. Brant used to always be a nighttime gym goer. So you guys know he has a really long day outside of the house. He'd get in at like 6:40, go right to the gym. work out for an hour, be home at 7:40, and then like it's almost 8 o'clock, and I have been by myself for 13 hours with the baby, and you're first going in and getting that workout. And prior to then, there were, maybe even when I was pregnant, we had conversations about like, do you think you're going to switch to morning workouts? And he was like, hell no, I will never do morning workouts. I am not a morning workout guy. And then like life changed, and it got to a point where like, hey, I'm getting in bed at 8 because I got to be up 27 times nursing the baby in the middle of the night. And like, I need to get sleep. You're not getting home till 8 and eating dinner first then. And then you want to wind down and relax and whatever. And we were missing that like nighttime time together. And it wasn't even me that brought it up, because I was like, we've had this conversation before. I'm not going to bring it up again. Like, he's a big boy. He can make his own decisions. And eventually he did get to a point where he was like, I think I'm going to switch to morning workouts. I don't like not really seeing you and the baby at night. I don't like that we're not having that nighttime wind down time together. And so there were conversations leading up to it, but I didn't want to be in a position where I was like nagging, because at the end of the day, I was like, if he wants to be here and wants to spend time with me and us as a family, like, I'm never going to yell at him for going to get a workout in. Like, I know that that's really important for him. And so I really didn't hold any resentment of like, at the end of his workday, he's going to get a workout in. It's not my preference of how I would have done things timing wise, but I was also like, I can't beat him up for going and getting a workout in and taking that time for himself before he comes home, the same way that I might do it in the morning to take that time for myself. So eventually he did get to a point where he was like, I think I'm going to switch to morning workouts. I feel like it would just be better timing wise. And it's really hard to do it at the end of the day. And then I miss that nighttime, family time. And so we were in a similar position, and did have some of those conversations, but, that also might be a little different than what you're talking about, Josh, because maybe one person is not working out at all in that situation and feels like they're, needing to choose family time or spouse time or the workout. And
well, it's still a great compare contrast. And like, you guys are blessed with a very high emotional IQ across your entire family. For those who are struggling, and maybe one person is working out, maybe they're both working out, but even in your scenario, if Brant had never come around to that, someone in this similar situation, the other person never says, you know what, I want that family time. Maybe, a little bit selfishly, like, I kind of like cruising through the day and, I get to hang out and be fun dad on the weekends. How does someone have that difficult conversation where like they've gotten past the point of caring if they're the nagging person because it's just not working anymore?
Listen, if you're tired of the all or nothing cycles, the diet starts Monday, the I know what to do, I'm just not doing it feeling, we should probably talk. Our one-on-one online coaching isn't just about workouts and meal plans, it's about building something that actually fits your life. No cookie cutter templates, no guilt, just real coaching and real results. Plus, we've got a pretty big team, so we can even pair you with an expert who actually understands your lifestyle because they've gone through it too. If that sounds like what you've been missing, check out the link in the show notes to apply for coaching. Then we'll send you the link to book a free, no obligation consult call with our team. There are no hard closes. We will not even take your credit card over the phone. You'll get the details to sign up on your own time. And more good news, we are in fact qualified for HSA FSA reimbursement. One last thing, we even offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. What are you waiting for? Spots are limited, so apply today. All right, let's get back to the show.
yeah, I mean, I didn't know if that was rhetorical or if that was something you wanted me to answer.
No, I think we got to break it down because people are in that situation.
So you're saying back up for a minute. I'm confused by your scenario.
Brant never comes around in this hypothesis.
And he just sticks with nighttime workouts.
He just sticks with it.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, on your side, you're burning out. You need a change. You need time for yourself. You're not getting that. You brought it up casually in the past.
Right.
How do you
if it were me, I'd be sitting down. If he didn't come around to that, we would be sitting down and having a conversation about this is not working. We need, this doesn't work if our marriage doesn't work. So first and foremost is we talk a lot about our kids come first, but really our marriage comes first. I know you guys function that way too. And that's how Brant and I function. At the end of the day, you are my ride or die. Our marriage comes first because none of this works without that, without that stability. And so for me, I think I would be approaching that conversation in less of like a, hey, why don't you try a morning workout? But like, hey, we have to really sit down and hammer this out. We got to talk about this. And if you're lifting 4 days a week, maybe 2 of those days are on the weekends. And then it's only 2 days a week that you're, home late, instead of, all 4 of those being on weekdays. And, now you work out in the basement. Maybe we could be down there in the basement with you. And there's another kind of related example to that of sometimes Brant will lift on a weekend now, and when the girls are napping, and usually I work when the girls are napping, and sometimes he's just like, hey, come work in the basement. Like, I know you're gonna be on your laptop, but like, come work in the basement while I'm lifting. And just like me being there, he's like, I just want you there. It's like just me being there sometimes for him can feel like quality time. Like, I'm sitting on my laptop. It's not very quality time. He's like, but you're just there with me. And so that is another strategy, so to speak, that just works for us in terms of how can we be with each other and maximize time together on the weekends, even if one of us is working out and one of us isn't.
Love that.
That's where I'm at.
And, a more extreme example is, well, not extreme in the sense that may have been led, but doing that together. So like maybe everyone works out at night after work. Maybe when the kids go down, maybe with the kids, it becomes a family activity, especially if you're in a warmer climate. Maybe the kids go to bed at 7
and we both do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Or the garage doors are open. Kids are playing in the yard. We're doing lunges across the yard. Whatever it is, there are different ways about it where you can incorporate it together. It's just, again, it always circles back to that communication. And if you can't start there and be empathetic, like you're married for a reason. Like you just said, that's your ride or die. You should be able to hear and have an open mindset and understand that we have to come up with a solution that works for everybody. This is one of the most difficult conversations out of all the difficult conversations that we have with our clients, because from our perspective, here are the things you could be doing. We can only say so much about, your relationship. We're not marriage counselors. We're not therapists walking you through your boyfriend, girlfriend dynamic. It's just, as empathetic humans, here are some things we can bring up that will allow us all to feel supported. If you're in a relationship where you feel as though you can't have that conversation, I think you start with asking why. Why do you feel that way? Is this a healthy relationship? Are we both supporting each other to meet each other's needs? But this is something that so many people tiptoe around, and I don't think it needs to be that way. You have to take care of yourself. There has to be an even split and even dynamic in that regard, because if you're always pouring from an empty cup, it will get ugly. It will come to a head and it will erupt at a certain point in time.
I think sometimes people get afraid, and I would hope that you don't have a fear with your spouse if you're listening to this, but I think that sometimes people are afraid to ask hard questions because they're afraid of what the answer might be. And part of what I think is the hard conversation in this scenario is not just like, hey, this isn't working, I need you to go to the gym earlier. It's like, can you explain to me why you don't want to be home? Can you explain to me why you do prefer evening workouts? And maybe it's just like, I really value that extra hour of sleep in the morning. Or maybe it's, I just kind of feel like it's boring at home and I don't really feel like we need that extra hour together. Like, I think sometimes people are nervous to ask the question because they're afraid what the answer might be. But so be it. You deserve to know the answer to that question. And I feel like you're always like one question deeper from getting to like the root of something. And sometimes we're just too hesitant to ask that deeper question. Like, is it you're burnt out after the day? Is it, that when you come home at that time, that's witching hour for the baby and you just can't bear walking into the house after a 12-hour workday to a screaming baby? Like, what is it? Tell me, communicate it, and then let's move forward and figure it out together. But I think asking the one question further from where you're comfortable is usually a really good strategy. It just can kind of feel like a scary strategy sometimes.
It can be, but the other side is always brighter.
Yes.
You communicate through the hard things to get to the better things, and things improve through that communication. Like, you can be in a good spot and bring yourself to a great spot through the conversation. Even if it's not a difficult one, it's just something you haven't decided to talk about. You can go from a difficult spot to a much better spot working through that. Like, a lot of times we talk about not borrowing worry. I know we had to explain that a couple of times. What does that mean? You're worrying about the conversation and that ends up eating more energy than just having the damn conversation and having things be better afterwards.
That's been my fault. I mean, that's something that I used to be very bad at. You can probably attest to that.
It's like talking to a wall.
Like, well, not, it's like I hold things in until they get to the, I used to do it much more.
Used to, not anymore. You're much better
I don't
now.
do it anymore, but I used to hold things in. And when you do that, you kind of just, you come to that answer, that conclusion in your head of what you think it's going to be. And it might not even be that answer, but you almost like think of the worst case scenario, or you just have this perception of what you think they're going to say. So then you don't bring it up, or you don't have that conversation. And even
And then
when
we literally make up our own story about
exactly
the reason for something. Yeah.
that was my
dangerous.
that's my weakness.
Yeah.
And that's that paired
Well, I
with
keep up myself
Josh's
stories.
that paired with Josh's I don't know what to how
Anger
to
management
Anger.
skills.
yeah
Anger. Lack
anger
thereof. Lack thereof.
it was just like talk about like getting in a rut in this never ending circle. Like we would then have the conversation because it came out and it got to the point where nobody could take it anymore, and then it like turned into this thing that didn't need to be in the first place.
Yeah.
So
we also had we grew up with entirely different communication structures. Like
Yes.
I grew up where we would have the blowout. The house would be like bouncing inside, and then we'd be good 10 minutes later. Like we got it out, we had our blowout, and now like we've communicated and we've moved forward. And was it like the best way? No, but we got through it. Versus you were very lack of communication, like coming up, like your whole family had trouble, just simple little things. I'm like, why aren't we talking about that? Like this could be done in 4 seconds. So like that was just our cycle. I'd blow up. You would say words, but we would just be talking in circles because you weren't actually listening or like answering the thing that I had just said. So like then I
because
took
I would
it to
still
another
be so
level.
stuck on the first thing. Like I would just be
Yeah.
in my head, walls up, can't see or hear anything you're saying, and I cannot continue the conversation. Like it was not good. But it got us to where we are today, working through those things. And I think that I've learned a lot as far as like how to communicate better from how you grew up, your parenting style. And we have a nice blend now between what I had and what you had, and we've learned to mesh much better.
I think that's such a underrated like piece of it is the type of communication that you came from as a family. Like Brant's family is like very quiet. They don't share a lot. They don't talk about like personal things. And my family was like, we talk about poop at the dinner table. It's fine. Like that's, everything was so open. And then Brant came into my family and like our communication style was like, whoa, you guys say too much. And so, yeah, it's interesting when you are then a married couple and you're kind of finding your own communication style for your marriage and your kids and your family and so on.
And even now, I'll be quick to snap in certain occasions, but I'm just as quick to apologize. Like with the wife, with the kids. Like not that I'm blowing up the way that I used to, but the best thing I can do at this stage is just own it. Like, hey, really sorry. Here's what I meant, and you move forward. But giving you guys some tools, some reframes. I don't know if love languages is still a trend, if it's still a thing, but I think incorporating.
I don't know if I would call it a trend, but I think it's like a
like it
legit
was all
thing.
everyone was talking about for a minute, and you made me read a book about it. So that was when it was.
That was when we weren't communicating well.
That was when we were not communicating well. Here, read this book. I'm like, all right. But if we can sneak fitness in there as a love language, right there next to communication, and understanding if it's not something you're both currently passionate about, can you just share movement and incorporate that as some quality time, morning walks or an evening walks or weekend walks, find a trail, find a hike. Like that's the simplest thing. You're just out in nature, which is good for everybody, bringing the blood pressure down. We also need to remember that you don't necessarily need to train together to be on the same team. We're just supporting each other's time, our goals, our routine as a whole, celebrating those wins together, not just, hey, you lost 5 pounds, but I can see that you feel better. I can see your mood is better. I can see your energy is improving. I love seeing that you're consistent with these things. So especially in the person who isn't involved in the fitness thing yet, communicating that to them, like, hey, if you can support me in this way, it's going to go a long way. You make it a ritual. So we just talked about the hikes or the garage lifts or, you know, the morning walks. Like, make that a routine, something you can look forward to throughout the week. And just using that movement and activity, that time together as connection. Again, just talking about the goal. This is what I'm going to work on, having that support, whether you're both doing it, whether it's one. I think these are just some simple tools and reframes to kind of give you guys talking points. This is why it's important to me. Here's how it's going to make my life better, how I'm going to feel better, and as a whole, come in full circle, like our life becomes better. Just being there to support each other.
Yeah, and
I
even
think
if they're
that's-
not on the same page, at least supporting and encouraging your partner. I think something that we unfortunately hear from clients a lot is their partners assisting in sabotage and
Yeah.
not really supporting them through that, or like, you know, I want to go here this weekend. Oh, okay. Well, I want to get in a workout first. Why do you have to work out again? Like, all you do is work out. You already worked out 3 times this week. What are you obsessed? Like that's not helpful. No one's dragging your ass to the gym, but at least support your spouse. Don't make them feel bad about wanting to improve their health and fitness.
And what's even worse, what has come up a few times, is that plus the backhand of
The
you haven't even
shame.
lost any weight. Like, what are you doing? Why are you still doing this? It's not
Why are
working.
you working
Can we
so
just-
hard? You still look the same.
Which, if we can hit on that for a second, yeah,
Like a
you
strangle
guys can't
someone.
see it's a Joelle going for the jugular. It's never the person who is making the changes. It's the person who is insecure about seeing the changes being
Yeah,
made.
which
Whether
is
that's
such a projection.
whether it's a best friend, whether it's a spouse, whether it's just someone, you know, shouting from the stands, talking about it at work, they are the person who is afraid to make those changes, and they don't like seeing other people improve because it just kind of keeps picking at that wound for them.
And it's sad because I wish more people understood that when your spouse is bettering themselves and is happier and is healthier, your relationship is going to be better
You're gonna
because they
benefit
are
too.
happier and healthier, and they want to do things with you in and out of the house. So I think it's ironic that some spouses can act like that. It's because it's almost like they don't understand their life is going to be exponentially improved because their spouse is happier.
I wonder
more
if there's
sense.
an aspect of the non-action taking spouse being afraid that their partner will outgrow them because they are wanting to better themselves, and there's probably
sure.
some fear laced
Yeah.
in there.
If they're not also bettering themselves at the same time and scared to stay in the same place when the other person is leveling up.
It's insecurity.
Look at us. We're
it's
basically
ego.
marriage counselors now.
We should
Stay in
change
your
the name
lane.
of the podcast.
These
Love
are our own
languages with
personal
Josh, Joelle, and
experiences.
Alessandra.
This is not medical advice. We are not mental
Yeah.
health professionals. Lace that disclaimer in there.
No, but I think it's an important conversation to have. I mean, even as non-professionals in this exact space, like we see it all the time with our clients, like we're talking about, we've gone through a lot ourselves. And I don't think you have to be a professional in every aspect of things that you talk
Yeah,
about.
to talk about something.
Yeah.
What was your slogan, Joelle? Just 3 idiots with a microphone?
Yeah, probably. Sounds about right. 3 idiots with a mic.
That's all.
That's it.
That is it. Well, Tactical 5, rapid fire actionable tips. So if you're listening right now, here are 5 ways to make fitness strengthen your relationship, and you can start it this week. So take this with a grain of salt. If any of this applies to you, you want to try it, this is just a stepping stone for you. But trade a night of Netflix for a walk. You could create a 30-minute movement date, no phones, just like leave them home, go walk down the street, find a trail, do what aligns best with where you are and, you know, what seems the most enjoyable. Set one shared health goal this month, like cooking 3 healthy dinners together. How many times per week you want to do it, set a schedule in that regard, or, you know, walk 10 miles this month, something along those lines. Set something you guys can work towards as a specific goal and then celebrate when you achieve it. Checking in every Sunday. What's our game plan for this week? What are we doing together? What are we looking to achieve? Just make that a conversation. And a lot of times, again, when we get stuck, when we get lost in the day and we're just ending the day with 2 episodes or a book and going to sleep, like you're running out of things to talk about. You're like, you've been doing this for how many years? Like that can be a thing. This can be a new thing. So check in Sunday. What are we doing together? And again, reiterating the fact that we need to celebrate this progress out loud, even if it's small. That's going to be the 5th actionable step. So as you start laying these things out, how are we going to celebrate? Is it going out to dinner? Is it planning this awesome hike we wanted to do in Vermont or New Hampshire, or, you know, conquer this mountain? Make it fun. Make this a part of your life and build on it. It's too easy to get lost in the blur, and we need to figure out a way to use this to come together to strengthen the relationship, not make this such a harsh, you know, combative point, but to make this something that makes everybody better. Whether you're into fitness or not, there are things we can use this for and leverage it for to really improve.
We've been ditching our nighttime TV to just sit and talk.
There isn't even
Just
anything
it's just
good on
like
TV.
you guys know it's a hectic season of life, and if you don't really try to make that effort to have time with one another, it's so easy to just like be roommates. So we are typically like a put the girls down, make dinner, and like go sit and watch an episode of something and put on, you know, eat our dinner, you know, on the couch and do that. And lately it's like, hey, we put the girls down, you want to go sit at the dining room table and just eat and talk? And like that's what the last few weeks have been, because like that's really our time together for quality time during the week.
Yeah, it's not easy when you have little kids. I know that it's a constant struggle. Now that Wes is on, hey, knock on wood, since last podcast, he has been on a pretty consistent schedule. So I'm hoping that he continues that so that we can get back to more intentional time. Because it's hard, like when they're a newborn, you know, Joelle, there's no... Yeah. They could go to bed at 7:30 one night, and the other nights it could be 9 o'clock. So yeah. It's been all over the place, and I think it's also important to recognize like we haven't had that because it is this season. Like we have a newborn, that sometimes that is just the season. But you're not going to be in that season forever, and don't let your habits and let what is comfortable in this season bleed into the next season. If everything else has changed, you don't want that one thing to stay the same as far as your relationship goes.
Yeah, we're very much guilty of, during these difficult seasons, these busy seasons of life, like it's fine. You know, once Project B launches, we'll plan the vacation. We'll go do something. We'll get through the next couple weeks. Yeah, LOL. But we'll get through the next 2 weeks, and then we'll, you know, go someplace local, fun, whatever. Go have our date night. If we get through the next 3 months, get the baby on a schedule, we'll finally have a date night. Leave the kids home with our parents and whatever. Not that you shouldn't be or can't be doing those things, but you can't be waiting for those things. Like we need to find something on the daily. Yeah. It's not even necessarily on the weekly. Like what can we do on the daily just to stay connected? Because
you can't wait for a vacation.
Turns into a month, turns into 3 months, turns into 6 months.
I mean, it's like your fitness goals. If you keep saying, oh, I'll start Monday, I'll start next month, I'll start when things slow down, things are not going to slow down enough for you to finally be like, okay, we're good now, we're going to start. Like that rarely, if ever, happens. It's the same thing. It's the same exact scenario. You have to prioritize it, and you have to make time for it, and you have to figure out, okay, can I fit this 20-minute workout in instead of the hour workout that I used to do? Sure. Can we go for, I don't know, go hang out in the gym for 10 minutes when we used to go for a hike together for hours without kids? Like, sure. You have to find the little pockets for both fitness and for your relationship.
And in that regard, like we talk about habits and establishing those as needing to be tiny actionable steps, things you're never going to skip. It's so small, like it would be silly to skip. Same kind of concept. Like what can you apply with your spouse coming together, whether it's the fitness goals or not, like doing those things together? Like what is so ridiculously silly, easy we can do at the end of each day that keeps us connected? And those tiny little things compound, they build momentum, and those are what create the most dramatic transformations in your health and fitness. And I can say it's very likely to do the same for your relationship. So if this hit home for you guys, listen to it again with your partner, share it with them, tell them listen to it on their way to work. 3-episode rule from a general sharing perspective. If you are listening beyond 3 episodes, you've probably gotten some value from this show. So just leave us a quick 5-star in Spotify, Apple. Leave a quick blurb if you want to. Share it on social media. Tag us. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for being here. Anything else you guys want to add?
Nope.
Where can they find you?
Have a great day.
I'm Alessandra Skutnik.
At Joelle Samantha.
At Josh Scutman.
Everything else you need is linked in the show notes.
Weirdos.